In and Out with me, Professor Yalman, from the TEDU radio studios at TED University. This is to reach out to those who have questions and want desperate answers. Why me? Because I've seen it all. I've seen it all in different aspects. I have been up, down, I was fired, I was hired, I was poor, I was rich. I fell in love, I lost my love, I became a kite surfer, I became a writer, I became a poet, I became a musician. I never stopped trying. At the end of the day, I never stopped trying. I never lost my hope. There was always a pinnacle in my life where the answers to those questions came. And if those answers are not coming by themselves, here's your chance to ask us. Ask us and I will answer them. As I say, life can get even or you can get a 7. So a 7 you can get much easier, not just believing in luck, but being persistently pursuing your path, which is your authentic path. Ask the questions. In and Out with Professor Yalman every week on Thursday with you. Yes, it's the first Thursday of 2025 and In and Out with Professor Yalman is again on air at Radio TEDU at TED University Ankara Studios, and we have our first guest of 2025. Dear Mariam, welcome, and you're going to be asking us the first questions of this year.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here. So my name is Mariam, and currently I'm a senior in business administration, and I've been very lucky to have the opportunity to ask Professor Semih some questions today.
The honor is ours, yes.
All right, thank you so much. So Hojam, actually I was very curious because you have such a unique personal brand. So I wanted to ask you, what strategies do you employ to maintain authenticity and coherence in your personal brand across different professional domains?
You know, as I said various times in class and my closing speech of 2024, actually, I recited an anecdote with my son. He was going to this party and he asked me what to wear, and he could have worn a tuxedo, he could have worn a formal dress, whatever. But I think the authenticity comes from being comfortable. Whatever you're comfortable in, it doesn't matter, you know, what ambience or what surroundings. I think it starts with that. So if you're comfortable with white, you're comfortable with white. If you're comfortable with, you know, a colloquial language, then that. But of course, having a vision of life and, you know, a deep understanding of various thoughts and analysis of various philosophies or dogmas even introduced to us in life. These are all good perspectives to gain and have it in your bundle. But I think what matters is the authentic you. So whatever is going to bring that out in you, I think that is the starting point. But then, of course, you know, a brand has its way of presentation, association itself with other things, you know, solving a problem and, you know, having this essence and creating a certain level of curiosity and an ambience of, you know, I want to be around that brand or I want to be part of that brand, etc. Of course, those are all very, very important. And a personal brand is, you know, you're dealing with humanity. You know, you're dealing with the stakeholders that you chose for yourself. For of course, that you're gonna give it a thought about that. But again, it all starts with how you want to be comfortable and how you can express yourself freely in that comfort. I'm not saying put yourself into a comfort zone. I'm saying, you know, be you in the way of creating that authentic self of yours and maintaining it, maintaining it, you know, not just being sustainable, but also putting the effort to it. So if you water life,
yes,
and life will bloom, so shall you.
I like that. I like that very much. And in class, you often talk about the importance of authenticity and, you know, sticking to your values. How can students build the confidence to stay true to their beliefs and principles, especially when faced with, you know, adversity or pressure to conform?
You go back to your childhood,
Mm.
when you were like 5, 3,
Yes.
4, whatever the rule set you were introduced, you were you.
Yes.
So you were operating on a value set even back then. But when we grow up, of course, we've been introduced to cultural aspects. We've been introduced to belief sets. We've been introduced to certain way of philosophies and dogmas, whatever. And then those value sets try to sort of, they try to be shaped up.
Yes.
People try to shape it up for us.
Absolutely.
But I think if you become true to your authentic and starting values or whatever they were, like
Yes.
going back to the games that you played as a child, for example, you play those games actually in a curriculum of rules.
Yes.
You were not introduced to those rules. You actually practice those rules from within. You set your boundaries of red zones and whatever. And then you were introduced to that. But, initially, everybody, when they do something, they have their limitations.
Yes.
They have their limits and limitations. So, yes, you can get rid of the limitations, but you can keep the limits. There's no problem with that. So, the values that you should be operating with should be those values that you were sort of fond of as a kid, not those values you were superimposed on.
I see. I get what you're trying to say. But for example, like professional environments, it's kind of hard for young students, to kind of stick to their beliefs in those kind of environments and very professional environments. So what kind of advice would you give to them?
Companies do this trick, like, in whatever company you work for, they have their company or cultural values within the company. And then now and then they revise those by asking the employees what value sets should be introduced into that company. Some of them are very sincere in their way. Some of them are just doing it for the sake of including you. But you know what? If the value sets or visions and missions of companies are decorations for walls or pamphlets or annual reports, they're not going to be very longevic, or they're not going to have a longevity in their sustainability of life. And more or less, people are going to work there and then they're going to leave, or they're going to stay there because they want to imprison themselves there within that culture, whatever. But I think there's two ways of approaching your question. Number one, you either look at those values and you find a midway between those values and your values. Okay?
I see.
And you don't shy away of stating your boundaries as per that midway. Or number two, you go, okay, for a while, I can take on these values. They're not that bad.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that I should get rid of my own values. I can abide with those values, and they will not be the end of my authentic self. And for a while, I'll as I do whatever I do for that period of time, I won't be very expressive about them. I won't be very neglective about them. So that's the second way. But I think the most healthy way is like the first one. Now, there is going to be no company, unless it's your company,
Yes.
who will say, no, everybody's values are very authentic, so they should, work as per their own values. They're not going to do that. So if you're against that, if you're very fond and persistent and insistent of your own values, then you should form your own design of whatever company that you want to build.
I like that advice. And actually, I wanted to ask you, so in your book, and excuse my pronunciation, Hayal et Kiol, You Are What You Dream Of, you discuss enhancing imagination. And so I wanted to ask you, how can individuals apply this concept to overcome both personal and professional challenges?
See, imagination capacity is a gift. And I'm not saying this. I'm reciting now. I'm reciting Ibn Arabi. I'm reciting Goethe. I'm reciting the director Spielberg. It's a God's gift. Okay, it's a gift given to everybody, and to hear their soul's mission. Okay, so yes, the society are pre-imposing certain stuff to us through brands, actually, and utilizing perception techniques for us to sort of forget our imagination skills, forget dreaming, and adopt those dreams, and continue our life as per. So what happens is imagination capacity increase or awakening back to your imagination skill level, because that level is like 98% when you were a little kid.
Yes.
But when you are like the freshman year in university, that goes to 2%, because of the society, because of the schooling systems, whatever. But the trick is to remember that 98%, to utilize that 98%. Of course, there are ways and techniques of bringing that back. For example, meditation is one of them, but giving a concrete example would be if you play with your feet.
Yes.
Bare feet. Okay.
Bare feet.
And concentrate on those.
Okay.
That brings a certain level of imagination capacity increase back to your wisdom. Or if you're like staying alone and you're looking over the ocean, whatever. If you can focus on one point and not sort of interfere your focus with other things and try to maintain that focus over 20 minutes, that will bring your imagination capacity skill back. Or there are things where you can do exercises where you can write anecdotes about the future. You can write anecdotes about what's happening around you. Where you can write anecdotes of your inner voice, of how it responds to certain questions that people ask you, and you look at the analysis of the outcome. You can see in between the lines what your imagination skill is coming from in terms of the answer itself. So looking at the content of the answer, you will see whether it's authentic you, or is it something that you have read or came across before. So I think the best way to make it alive, to keep it alive, is to be very much mindful of what is being sold to you, whether it be an idea, whether it be a brand, whether it be a product, and how that is actually taking the essence away from you in terms of how you can process your imaginative output. Everybody is a receiver and everybody is a decoder. So you receive certain signals for you to decode, and that imagination of yours will be the shaper of that. So if you can keep that authentic and those channels open through meditation and mindfulness and knowledge, but not adopting the doctrine of what to think, or but how to think.
Absolutely.
And understand your capacity being increased as you go along, putting forth things which are very, very new and innovative, solving certain issues people come across, then the capacity starts coming back.
I see. I like that. I do believe meditation does kind of enhance your creativity as well. I try to do it at least 10 minutes a day.
Well, creativity is also a result of decoding your imagination capacity.
Absolutely.
Everything we call, like, when we say co-create, create, it's a decoding process. And the decoding process starts with actually you putting your imagination force into it.
I see. I got it. Actually, this is something that I've been very, very curious about. As someone who wants to be a writer, I admire your ability to publish multiple, various impactful books. And I know that writing requires, immense discipline and creativity. So I wanted to ask you, how did you cultivate the focus and structure needed to bring your ideas to life?
What I did was I did it in a way, Semih's way,
Okay.
because I have a very difficult time sitting at one spot and writing, It's very boring for
It
me, not
is.
moving, whatever. And whenever I get up, I lose my train of thought.
Same.
And at the same time, if I start writing with a pencil or a pen,
Mm-hmm.
then I cannot read my handwriting. So
Uh-huh.
whatever I write, it has to be, even though I love the vibration, it has to be something where I type.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of recording something as voice, that's also a very difficult way for me to write. So I found a very practical way.
Okay.
So on my phone, there's this app called Notes. Everybody has it, actually.
Yes.
So I wrote my entire books on Notes.
Really?
And so I on Notes I opened the title,
Yes.
as for example, The Beard, okay?
Okay.
And The Beard's synopsis is whatever people told me about my beard, my internal voices of id, superego, and ego sort of answered back, but
Yes.
they had a duel within. So it was never sort of impacting the person who made the statement. It was impacting my inner life. So, for example, let's say I had this long beard and you said, "Oh, you look disgusting." And whatever I felt, I started writing in those notes, as per the page of that book. And then I left it alone until I heard it from another person. And then I wrote the beginning of the book, the end of the book, etc., etc. So I do this with every book. If it's a poetry book, or if it's a play, a drama play, or a comedy play. For example, now I'm writing a novel on a person. It's called Meddah. Meddah means a storyteller. And there's this guy, he's on his bed of death. And he says this line at the very beginning of the book. He says, "I never thought I would die in your arms." And then all of a sudden you're introduced to 11 odd characters who have different lives, who have in different places, geographies, who are different families, whatever. But as you read the book, you understand that these people are the same. And those people are the same with the guy who's on that deathbed. And then the guy dies. But in whose arms, you decide as the reader.
That is such a
So you're going to be deciding what life that old guy lived, which was introduced to you within the book.
This is so interesting.
Now, the way I write this is I write it on notes. Like every morning or whatever. I don't have a time. Whenever I have this inspiration, mostly on a plane or after a yoga session, whatever, whenever the inspiration comes, I don't push myself. I retrieve. That's my technique, though. But I know writers who can sort of go to a quantum level and then sit there and finish the entire 250-page book in one night. That's not me. I write like I read. I cannot read like one book. I read 3-4 books
at the same time.
At the same time, I skim whatever. That's exactly how I write.
I see, and I'm curious, like, how do you structure it?
It's already in me. The way the structuring part is, it's already, the skeleton is in my head. And if I don't trust my train of thought, I draw something which sort of applies that skeleton. But it's there. And that's how I present as well. For example, I never present from notes, whatever. I have this skeleton formation in my mind.
Yes.
I know my peaks, and I present like that. But that's me. So whatever is sort of practical for you, if you want to be a writer, you're right.
I see. And your book actually sounds very interesting. Could I ask you when you're releasing it?
The book is but this book I've been writing for the past 3 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see. It's my first novel.
I'm very interested to read that.
First novel ever. Yeah.
I see. And I wanted to ask you, actually, I've been taking 2 of Semih's courses right now, and you discuss soft power a lot. And it's associated, with diplomacy and influence. And I wanted to ask you, so how can students apply the principles of soft power to build, meaningful networks, stand out professionally, and, lead effectively?
See, soft power usually is a very good technique. And I think the best movie which shows soft power is Wag the Dog. It's with Dustin Hoffman
Yes.
and Robert De Niro,
I watched
and
that.
they are trying to sort of make a president again, re-elect. But it's a setting. You know, it's like, think of yourself as you are designing a play, okay?
Okay.
Drama or comedy, whatever. So you have to sort of put the setting accordingly. So when people are watching it, you know, you have the right attire, you have the right setting, you have the right mood, whatever, and you're told at certain parts of the act what to do in terms of whether you should be applauding as the audience, or whether you should be sort of being silent, or even more silent, or whether you should talk or not. So you give the Aufgabe, or the designation of what to do as a task to the audience. Now, the way a student should do this is who are the players, for example, in that play. It's you, it's your fellow other students, it's professors, whatever, and if you can structure the play so for the desired atmosphere and setting, everybody will become will be part of that actually design. But for it to sort of stick and sink, you can use music, you can use certain colors which are repeated, you can use emblems, you can use certain ways of presenting yourself constantly, so all of a sudden it transforms you into that way of being and presenting. So if you sort of like the movie that you showed us in last year's class as your final project.
Yes.
We saw you with a crown on your head.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
That's soft power. So I will remember you from now on of being crowned with the intentions and objectives of your life ahead.
I see.
So you used a certain way of symbolism continuously repeating itself in that little short movie that you produced.
Yes.
And that is actually part of the soft power elements that usually bigger brands or nations use. For example, America comes into a nation with its Top Gun movie and Levi's 501s and Ray-Bans and music, whatever. Those are all elements like that crown. And people remember those things, and all of a sudden when you put them together, you have the big mosaic. So create more of that stuff for you. Create more symbols and put those symbols in the pockets of those players who are playing in that setting, that game with you. Which actually all of a sudden they're not watching, but they're part of.
Yes.
So soft power means giving tasks, making them play in the same environment, but at the same time symbolically, emotionally bond them.
I see. So there's a lot of symbolism that needs to be used as well.
Definitely.
I see. I got it. And actually, I wanted to ask you, so you've worked on impactful initiatives like Dreams Talk, and which connects, for those of you that don't know, it connects students' dreams with solutions. And for someone like me who aspires to work in the humanitarian field and eventually, open up an NGO, what advice would you give on creating sustainable, impactful initiatives like that address societal challenges?
First, there's the easy route, which is when you look at the United Nations SDGs, I think there's 16 or 14, I don't know.
Yeah.
You have to sort of abide with them, something which sort of answers that within that region that you want to perform.
Yes.
And then you task it, and then fund it, and form a foundation or get together with a group of people, and then you move on.
Yes.
That's number one. That's sort of an easy one because SDG is already there.
Yeah.
For example, at Dreamstalk, we went the hard way because it doesn't sort of correspond to any SDG.
It doesn't.
But we want to create another SDG, which is imagination. And we want to have a day of imagination of the world, which everybody celebrates, imagination, power, whatever. So introducing a new SDG to the United Nations, which is an impact of humanitarian well-being and growth and evolution. That's the difficult part.
Yes.
For that, you need persistently pursuing your objectives and and analyzing the results. But at the same time, you need funders. You need to sort of team up with other foundations or other institutions like think tanks who are after that, essentially. That's the difficult part, okay?
Yes.
In terms of you, for example, you can do both. You can have an SDG and you can sort of go after that, but you can also, in Somalia, for example, if you're going to do that, you can, for example, call up an initiative like the one we have at Dreamstalk, and then that will sort of aid you with its own methodologies to serve your grand purpose. And that's also another thing. Now, right away, forming something big might not be a good way to pursue it. For example, we wanted at Doğuş Automotive, when I was like the board member there, back in 2003, we came up with something which would be over any brand that it represents, like as a social impact situation.
Yes.
And Turkey had this has and still has this this problem of people going berserk in terms of holidays and becoming a traffic dragon or traffic monster.
Yes.
But traffic monster is something negative, so we sort of got together with kids and they had drawings, whatever. One kid talking about traffic wrote down on a big piece of paper, "Traffic is life."
Yes.
All of a sudden, we made that slogan into an impactful set of activities where we introduced teaching kids of putting their belts. We introduced to public that they should be always aware of the rules, which are for the benefit of them. And since we had this positive slogan, "Traffic is life," and being that introduced through kids, we combined it also with the Doğuş Children's Symphony Orchestra, where both initiatives started performing for each other, and the visibility of "Traffic is Life" slogan and social mission, and being persistently after this every year, it still is now very much regarded as an impactful way of teaching people to be mindful when they're driving. Now, did this become a foundation? No. It's still an initiative under a company. So you don't have to find a foundation, whatever. You can you can introduce something that you want to achieve under a powerful entity, which they will keep it as part of their culture and and keep it alive for many years to come.
I like that. Thank you so much for that answer. And I wanted to ask you, in class, you mentioned that, happiness is a choice, which I found extremely profound. I wanted to ask you, so how can students cultivate a mindset that prioritizes, happiness and resilience, especially when faced, with different kinds of challenges?
Start with a choice. Like every morning you wake up, okay? Every morning you wake up, you have physical needs, but at the same time you have spiritual needs.
Yes.
So when you wake up, you approach life as, saying to yourself, I'm not going to be depressed. I'm not going to be this. I'm not going to be that. I will choose today to be happy. Now, that's the first step, okay? But then there's, of course, things which feed you spiritually and motivationally, etc.
Yeah.
So try to structure your life around those and don't keep those things very big. Driving a Porsche might be very inspirational for you, but then if you're in your car with if you're renting a car, for example, don't rent an automatic car. Rent a stick shift car, manual car, and drive it like a Porsche.
Okay.
My nephew, he says, I did own a Porsche, in my other career life, whatever. But now I rent a car, and I always rent a stick shift car. And my nephew, who's 15, he says, "Dayı, even a Fiat Egea, under you
Uh-huh.
looks like a Porsche.
Wow.
Because I treat it like that. So treat life as it as it should respond to you. Treat people like that. Treat this classroom like that. Treat the studio like that.
Yes.
Now, Radio TED, Radio TED Studios. Is it like it's a perfect place, for example? But is it like the Howard Stern Studios? No. But I feel like Howard Stern here.
Okay.
Okay.
I see.
It's how you emotionally feel as you do something, which will create and expose your light of enthusiasm to yourself and to other people. So it's always starting with you and how you're treating things.
Absolutely. I do believe that your outlook on life becomes your life in the end of the day. And for the last question, I wanted to ask you, so right now I'm graduating and the transition from university to the working world is very overwhelming. I wanted to ask you, what steps can students take to manage this uncertainty and, find clarity?
Yeah, that's always a big challenge, but that challenge is never going to end after you graduate and you have a job or have created your company, whatever. Because uncertainty is there are a lot of variables happening in the world as we speak because you're not alone. You're like with 8 billion whatever people.
Absolutely.
And so many different geographies, so many different ways of governing, so many different ways of people acting, interacting, whatever. But at the same time, we're part of the universe. We're rotating around whatever systems. Absolutely. And the shifts are happening. Even your cells are dying and new cells are being born, etc. So uncertainty, there's always uncertainty, but have uncertainty as a motivational factor. It's so nice to not to know
everything. Yes.
Okay. It's so nice to not to control.
Yes.
It's so nice to let go and appreciate the flow.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the beginning philosophical part. But then, of course, informational interviews, internships, conversations with your professors, trial jobs. So when you're accepted to a job, tell them that they should try you out for a month. You try them out for a month. They try you out for a month. So I think make it an enthused process of not knowing, and not knowing is nice, rather than saying, oh no, my God, I have to know, we think we control stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm sounding like Sadhguru right now. We think we control stuff. We don't control anything. Yeah, we don't control anything, because we are so many, and so many, when they're trying to control something, all of a sudden you're not in control.
Yes.
You're under control, but you're not in control. So I think the Unitarian approach of the positivity of not knowing, the unbearable lightness of not knowing, like in Milan Kundera's book, it should embrace you.
I love that. And that was it for my questions. Thank you so much for having me.
Mariam, thank you very much. I hope to be part of your initiative in Somalia.
Yes.
Have a wonderful 2025, dear audience, dear Mariam, and dear Radio TEDU listeners. And we will be back with more questions in next episode. But this was fantastic start for 2025. Happy New Year again.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Now 44, still don't know for sure. When I was 4, then pure I was for sure. As I age, I realize it all, which I lure. Many I took granted for sure. Why the fight to reach physical reality? Seek redemption in insanity. Eternal is your spirituality, for which you need to expand on your dream capacity. Free is embedded in your soul. Molds are just a worldly fall. Death will set your soul free for sure. The trick is to die while you lure, to be one as you are, to embrace and not to war. The beauty, the man belongs to you in reality. Aesthetic leads to sensitive creativity and sensuality. Be noisy and contribute to universality. August bugs needed for resonating variety. As you realize, there is no captivation of the moment, always a game of aperture in reality. So I ask, who's successful, the loser or the winner? Loser is no failure, because without him there won't be any winner. It's never too late for anything in time and relativity. In dreams, there will always be eternity. Dreams are true as long as you don't eat them for dinner. In life, try not to bewilder, as long as you don't declare yourself a sinner. Main thing you realize, the sacred quest of your inner. Your inner. Your inner. Your inner. Now 44, still don't know for sure. When I was 4, then pure I was for sure. As I age, I realize it all, which I lure. I took granted for sure, now fool.